Yeah, exactly. All right, for those of us who aren't having so much fun with their backdrops, welcome to our monthly SciEngage discussion. My name is Steph Hunt. I'm the Director of LabX here at the National Academy of Sciences. My co-host is Emily and her Pika from the AAAS Center for Public Engagement. So if you haven't joined us before, we do these every month. They're very informal discussions. So this month we have Ali Kaufman and Kiki Sanford, who are going to talk to us about Science Talk and all things science communication. So they're going to go through some prepared remarks, but as always, if you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat box. Just request that everybody stay on mute if you're not speaking. And with that, I will turn it over to Kiki and Ali.
All right, thank you. So, as Jeff said, we have maybe a few prepared remarks, but we really want to make this a conversation because that's the whole goal of Science Talk, is to be a community building organization. And if we're just a couple of talking heads, even if one is a talking head in space, that really isn't all about building community. So just briefly, I think we know a number of people on here, but I thought we'd each introduce ourselves, and then we'll talk a little bit about the history of Science Talk and really the goals in starting the organization. So I'm Ali Kaufman. I am the president and co-founder of Science Talk and also a neuroscience professor at Washington State University in Vancouver, Washington. Right now talking to you from cloudy Pullman, Washington, which is in eastern Washington in the middle of nowhere. But it's the mothership campus for my institution. And Kiki, you want to introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll talk about how Science Talk got started?
Yeah, my name is Kiki Sanford, officially Kirsten. I got the Kiki from a nephew who couldn't pronounce that once a long time ago, and it stuck. I am the Vice President of Public Relations for Science Talk, and I host This Week in Science, have been communicating science through podcasting and video for, on about 15 years now, and am very excited about the potential for growing the community of professional science communicators.
Yes, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the impetus for starting Science Talk, and I think it's a story that's going to resonate with a lot of you. In fact, I know it already does resonate with some of you because a lot of us have talked about this already as I'm seeing everybody's names pop up. In that, for many of us in this growing field that we call science and communication, and when I say communication, I'm going to include those that are doing public engagement efforts. I'm using a very broad definition, umbrella definition here for science communication. And I'm sure science communication researchers on the call can disagree with me and we can have those conversations later. But for those of us that are working in science communication in some way, I think many of us feel like we pretty much fell into this field and that we were, or maybe still are, making it up as we go, and that wasn't something that we trained to do. It was something that we started doing as part of our interests with more or less or no support from our formal employers. So my own story was I started as a communicator. Really, I joined a Toastmasters club just to improve my own communication skills, which led to me teaching communication workshops because my Toastmasters club got a call that an organization wanted us to do a workshop that led to science communication workshops that led to speaking gigs and other opportunities. And when I moved to the Pacific Northwest a long time ago, but specifically when I moved to the Portland area about 8 years ago, started meeting other science communicators pretty much haphazardly, that somebody knew somebody and an email was sent and coffee was had or a phone conversation was had. And that it was very grassroots networking, which grassroots is great, but it was very haphazard, really by chance networking, that there were a bunch of us that thought, oh, I'm teaching these workshops, or I'm doing these public engagement speaking opportunities, working in engagement in different ways. And oh, I met somebody else that's doing something similar, and boy, isn't that cool, and let's get together and have coffee and commiserate and talk and share ideas. And enough of those meetings happened that a colleague, Janine Castro, and I, she worked at U.S. Fish and Wildlife, we decided let's try to get people in the Pacific Northwest together intentionally for a regional, at the time, science communication conference, because she and I had met through one of those haphazard, someone knew someone, and said, you know, everybody seems to be meeting that way. Let's make this something more official. So we sent a couple of emails. This was late 2015. We sent a couple of emails to some colleagues that we knew saying, hey, you interested in helping to organize a regional science communication conference in the Portland area? And within a week, we had 10 people saying, yeah, let's do this. To which we said, oh, crap. Okay, now we're actually going to do this. Here goes. Let's see what this looks like. And again, really the goal was, let's get together, form community, share best practices, and really just network and see who's doing what at the time in the region. So we held our first conference in January 2017, and it was a week after the presidential inauguration, just by timing, which meant that there was additional energy around communications about the importance of science and having good, accurate science communication and avenues for talking about science. And we came up with a name. We called ourselves Science Talk Northwest. A lot of the organizers did not actually meet face-to-face until that morning at 8 a.m. as we were trying to check people in and frantically assemble guest packets and things like that and figure out what the heck we were doing. We were at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. And a few months, actually several months before, and so the short version there is we had no idea what to expect. We said, we're going to try to form regional community. We'll see what happens. We might get 10 people. We might get 100 people. We sold out a month early with 250 people and said, this isn't a one of, this is a first of. Dropped the Northwest, went to Science Talk, and became a 501c3. But I want to bring Kiki in all this, and I'll let her talk some about the current state of the organization, what in her views of science communication and what she thinks we need for the community. But along the way of organizing the first conference, we already had 2 keynote speakers lined up, Jorge Cham, PhD Comics, and Nancy Barron from Compass. And one of the organizers said, hey, we should also look at bringing in Dr. Kiki Sanford in as a keynote speaker, but we're operating on a shoestring budget. We'd already lined up our 2 keynotes and we didn't have money for additional speaker travel. So we all said that would be great, but isn't she in San Francisco? And then I get a random email from Kiki, we'd never met, several months before the conference saying, hey, I heard somebody said we should chat. I'm living in the Portland area now. And we met for coffee and went, huh, yeah, energy around science communication. This is fun. And she wound up being another keynote speaker for the conference and leading a science communication contest that we had that evening, emceeing the contest and becoming a core member of the board. And really we're running the organization largely together now. But again, it was all these chance meetings. And to us, that's what's really exciting about the science communication community, but also about Science Talk, is that for Science Talk, our goal is to take away those chance meetings where you just meet somebody because someone says, hey, you should talk, but to actually intentionally build community through face-to-face and online interactions in different venues, as well as to provide professional development opportunities and really professionalize the field of science communication that we all know, love, and largely feel like we fell into and are making up as we go. I'll turn it over to Kiki now.
Yeah, I think that's the big point that a lot of colleagues, I call, whoop, my camera went sideways. I'm not sideways. My cat decided it
I was about
wanted
to say
to. It's the cat. She loves the cable, and then it pulls on the camera, and the whole camera falls over. Yeah, colleagues who are, not colleagues in an office, but colleagues across the country working in our independent pursuits have all fallen into our careers through a very not planned pathway. We had a chat on the Science Talk community yesterday with Jamie Vernon from Sigma Xi, and he talked about his own path into directing Sigma Xi, and he started out in research, ended up being a AAAS Science Technology Policy Fellow. He worked in kind of government in DC for a while, and then ended up working with Sigma Xi, helping them with communications efforts, and now is running the organization. Same with how I came into everything. I started in graduate school with the plans for an academic career, realized the likelihood of doing that was very slim, was doing a radio show on the college radio station at the time, said, hey, what about a science radio show? Science Friday is the only thing that's out there right now. There's got to be an opportunity for more. And things went from there. And it ended up being a, really a pathway of chance meetings. I met somebody at a conference. They worked in video. So I went that direction. Oh, I heard about the AAAS Mass Media Fellowship. I'll try for that. Ended up in a television station in New York City. That was awesome. Got more into video. It's a lot of things that ended up putting me on the path that maybe if I had planned it, I would have ended up here, but really there was no set pathway at the time. And now that science communication is becoming more and more of a distinct profession where job titles are, requests are being put out for science communicators within organizations. And it is a very broad term. What are the skills that you need to be a science communicator? What actually is it that defines that profession? We are realizing that there's a big gap in meeting the needs of that community and also in the development of that professional pipeline. And so we want to play a part in nurturing the entire community. And whether that, but that does include people who are engagement professionals, outreach and engagement, people who work in museums, people who are science writers, people who are scientists wanting to communicate from within academia, people who really run the gamut of the diverse choices that it now means to be a professional science communicator. We want to bring everyone together under one roof. And for me, it's been very exciting to be a part of so far growing Science Talk and helping to be a part of shifting the perspective of the organization from simply one of the Pacific, within the Pacific Northwest, to actually starting to look nationally and be able to be in these broader conversations about who we are and what we're doing as a community. So in terms of where we've been, used to be local, used to be, hey, let's meet. People are excited about that, about this, and getting together to talk about science communication. This is important politically, it's important socially, let's do that. We still have that excitement, but now it's a bigger conversation. We see the larger community and we want to work with everybody. I'm going to find the share button and share some slides with you about what has happened with Science Talk over, look, there's our logo. Can you see it? Am I sharing? Yep, okay, good. So Science Talk, since 2017 and our first conference, the conference itself has grown by over 139%. Ticket sales have grown as we've reached out and tried to bring in more people to the community. So thinking about where these people are coming from, it used to be very Western in the people, specifically Washington, Oregon, California, along the Western coast, and a few people from the East Coast. But in 2019, last year, we saw a much broader spread of people coming from across the country, broader organizations and different types of people. And we found that science communication professionals make up about 60% of the total attendees to the conference. And this to us is great. We want to have, this is the audience that we're looking for, but I'd love to see this percentage go up to 70-75%. I would love to see that really we're meeting the base of science professionals and that they see us as a resource and want to come to the conference. So 40% are trainees. Those are graduate students, postdocs, people who define themselves as trainees. And this number really came from people self-defining because it was based on ticket sales at our different ticket sale levels of either professional or trainee. So these numbers could be a little variable depending on whether people bought cheaper tickets.
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, there were probably 4 freelancers in that trainee category that have been freelancers for years, but were barely scraping by and said, I want to come, but I can't afford to pay the professional rate. I don't have anybody paying it. And we said, just go. It's fine.
Just come. Yeah. And so who comes to Science Talk? Now, a lot of people, we get emails from people a lot wondering whether Science Talk is for them, whether they should come to the conference. And they say, we went to your website, I went to your website, and it seems like this conference is for scientists who want to talk about science. And are other people coming to the conference? And yes, the majority of our attendees are people from universities, but these aren't necessarily just scientists. These are public information officers. These are people within the press office, the media relations office. These are people who are actually working on the science communications aspects, as well as scientists. Beyond that, government institutions. We have a lot of people from USDA, FDA, USGS is a big proportion, Department of Environmental Quality, so DEQ, Oregon. We also have government institutions like the Department of Energy. We have representatives, and also NASA have come. NASA was one of our sponsors last year as well. We also have a large number of science communication organizations, and that makes me very happy. So AAAS, thank you for coming. We would love to see more science communication organizations really coming in and letting us know, okay, we're the trainers, we're the facilitators. How can we talk with the practitioner, with other practitioners and the trainees and the researchers of science communication? And how can we really start putting best practices together as a community to create that community of practice, right? How can we create an environment where everybody's really talking to each other to learn how to communicate in the most effective way about controversial science topics, about misinformation or fake news? How do you respond to that? The things that are really driving the conversations these days. Professional societies. Now, that's another one that's very interesting to me because it's professional societies, people who are within the science communications aspect of the professional societies, as opposed to the scientists. And a lot of professional societies are now training their scientists in science communication, which is fantastic. And so, I'd love to see also, how can we become a part of that conversation to make sure that the flow of information from the best practices to the trainers to the scientists at those professional societies is taking place. And the media is fantastic. And this, Allie, this is one that we talk about all the time. It's kind of interesting because we have people who are in the media ask whether or not they can have press passes to this week, to Science Talk. And this is a question that comes up a lot because the science reporters from, say, OPB or Ars Technica or, whatever, New York Times or LA Times, the science reporters, we hope that they're actually going to come to learn about the communications that's taking place, to be part of the professional community and not be reporting on it per se. And so we really draw this fine line between who we potentially want to give a press pass to and who we consider part of the community. And this is an ongoing conversation, and we'd love input on that if anyone has any thoughts on it. But really, we're trying to even out the representation of people at Science Talk so that we have a really diverse and heterogeneous population that represents science communicators at large. We'd love to see more museums. We would love to see people from science festivals coming. We would love to see people who are doing science on taps and science in the pubs. We'd love to see them come, and really we need to be having these bigger conversations about how do we reach out from within the science bubble to the underserved communities, to the people who aren't interested in science necessarily, and how do we reach them? So from here, I guess the question is, how are we going to manage moving forward? Oops, I'm hitting all the buttons. Stop sharing there. How people who come to our conference, really, they love the conference and they love meeting people. Right now, even before this session, we were talking about coronavirus, or COVID-19. We should use the proper terminology. We were talking about COVID-19 and how it's affecting organizational travel and whether or not people are even going to be able to come to the conference. Allie and I are having a conversation about whether we're going to hold the conference this year. It's a decision that has to be made within the next few days. But really, when it comes to the question of whether we hold the conference, this comes back to the bigger question of what are we doing as an organization, and who are we serving, and how are we serving them in our community building efforts. And as we move forward, determining our response to these current events, we're going to be really trying to answer the question in our response with, okay, how can we bring people together regionally? How can we bring people together virtually? How can we still facilitate interactions between people that are potentially the running into one another in a hallway at a conference and going, oh, wait, your name tag, I see who you are, and having those moments of synchronicity that lead to collaborations and explosive growth in creativity. So yeah, we're going to be looking into all of these things moving forward. Do you want to bump forward from that, Allie?
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Kiki. And I'm happy to talk for a few minutes about some of our initiatives moving forward. And then we really just want to make this, again, a conversation. Yeah. So I'm not seeing anything in the chat so far. Hopefully people will be popping up in the next few minutes, not just in the chat, but unmuting their mic. Asking questions, having conversation. Because again, this is about building community for science communicators. And if everybody's just going to sit there passively and check their email on their side, then we're not really building community. So it doesn't necessarily work as well. And so really moving forward, we have another number of initiatives going on. In some cases, regardless of whether we still hold a face-to-face conference in a couple of weeks or not, in some cases, we're also looking at virtual plans to take the place of some of those face-to-face interactions if we can no longer proceed with the face-to-face conference in a couple of weeks. But we have an online community as well through the Mighty Networks platform. And so if you just go out to science.org and click on community, we have an online community forum going on. We have community managers that are managing discussions there, and we're continuing to grow those discussions. And this is really for the community to just jump on, introduce themselves, talk about issues. We post jobs there as well. So if anybody either has a job or is looking for one, this is a great place. And again, to continue to develop this as a resource for the science communication community as we broadly define that community. Kiki has also been hosting these monthly chats to that platform the last couple of months. So in February, we talked with Siri Carpenter, talking about the launch of her science communication book. And then again, yesterday with Jamie Vernon from Sigma Xi. So we're also looking for more people that are interested in being featured in those monthly online chats. So if you're interested in being featured, or there's somebody that you would love for them to be featured, that would be great. We're going to be rolling out online short courses this spring, late spring. So we're going to start with one on podcasting, obviously taught by Kiki since he is the original science podcaster, but then also courses, and these are courses for science communication professionals, not necessarily for trainees. So courses on things like, how do you market yourself as a freelancer and negotiate contracts? How do you use search engine optimization to optimize websites around scientific content? so we're again trying to, and these are based on conversations that we've already had with members of the community, and the courses are also offered by members of our community. So part of our goal with these courses and with some of these other offerings is to be the conduit to help the community connect with each other. It's not all top down, oh, we're Science Talk, we have all this information. It's no, we're going to bring people together, make those opportunities happen, build those connections. There are other programs that we're looking at, and one that's been rattling around my mind for the last year is this idea of building a science communication leadership pipeline and really helping to grow the next generation of leaders in the community. And we're in the middle of conversations with ComSciCon about doing that kind of a pipeline building effort. We also just brought on 2 new blog editors. So our previous blog editor had stepped down, and they have a lot of ideas for growing the blog. We just brought on a newsletter editor, so we'll be doing a quarterly newsletter that will also be featuring efforts from our community members, either individual science communicators or those that have started organizations as well. Hey, look, there's this thing going on regionally from one of the members of our community. And again, it's all about being responsive to the community needs and helping people to feel like we're no longer making it up as we go and just stuck in a corner, but we actually have a community of passionate science communicators that we can share ideas, share best practices, learn from the science of science communication as well, really bringing in more people from the research community there, and help to grow this as a field. I mean, really where I see Science Talk is as the professional society for science communicators, very broadly defined. But again, it's what does the community need? And I will say at this point, just so I think many of you know, we are currently an all-volunteer organization. And so what we do is determined by community needs and driven by the community, but also by the bandwidth of our volunteers. And we've just really doubled our volunteer corps in the last several months, which means that we'll have a lot more opportunities. But we're also looking for people that have ideas that say, I've had this idea, I want to try it for a while, and I'm looking for the right organization and the right platform to help with this idea, help develop it, help reach out to the community. And that's definitely part of what we're here for. So it's not, again, we're going to dictate, here are the programs. It's come to us with ideas, either what you're looking for or something you've wanted to try to implement. And let's work together to make this happen.
Yeah, I think the big point there is we also don't want to reinvent the wheel if it already exists. So what we want to do is really create the big tent where we're able to partner and collaborate with existing groups and really try and boost everyone's effectiveness through those partnerships.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is a good time if anybody has any questions about the organization, about the goals that we have highlighted, more deeply about things like our courses or our online community or the conference itself. I'd love to be able to answer people's questions.
Yeah.
And then I think also the big question to put out there is, what can we do for you?
Yep.
So if anyone
If it's
has
give you $1 million
answers.
for your own organization, then hey, help us figure out how to do that. And we'll all share in that happy goodness. But otherwise, yeah. What can we do for you? And what ideas do you have? So questions, comments, thoughts, ideas. This really is about community.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take the first step. There's a bunch of different sort of gatherings and efforts that are focusing on science communication, public engagement. Is there a sense that all that needs to be sort of mashed together? I'm thinking like the Science Event Summit, and like AAS has the Communicating Science Seminar, and there's the Aztec meeting for Science and Technology Centers. Like, how do we coordinate amongst all those things so we don't all have to go to 12 different conferences a year?
I think that's really a very important question, because as a freelancer, I don't, time and money are a big concern. People don't have the money to go to multiple conferences a year necessarily. But we all want to see each other, and we want to meet new people, and we want to go to the conferences and hear the new ideas. So yeah, I think there is a place to coordinate And if we can do that, find a way that the meeting will have, the main meeting where people come mix and mingle, and then there are satellite events, or I think it's important, and we should be having that conversation. And because Science Talk, our conference is the keystone event that we have right now, but in reality, if the community needs to coordinate and have only one conference, we want to work with the other people throwing conferences to make that happen. Because that's what the community is, the most important aspect, not our conference.
And I will say, not just we want to, but we already are. And so we're already in conversations with a number of the other organizations about joint efforts. So rather than, people going to multiple events, but let's do one that would potentially have breakout sessions specifically for science festival organizers or outreach and engagement professionals at universities or freelancers, that we would have different tracks within a larger conference, but that would really be a co-hosted conference. And so we have ongoing conversations with a number of different organizations. I don't want to name all of them in case I accidentally forget some, but obviously talking with AAAS, and thank you, Emily, for all those conversations. I was a visiting scholar there in the fall, which was just great to see more about how AAAS operates, talking with CompSciCon. They do their own flagship workshop, but that's 50 students. And a lot of times those students then are looking for opportunities moving forward. We're talking with the Science Festival Alliance. We're talking with Sunshine and her organization. We're talking with Jeannie Garbino, who organized the SciOut conference a couple of years ago, talking with a number of these other organizations about really what can we be doing together. And I think that's going to be really exciting moving forward. So I see some questions coming in on the side, and I think we can definitely address some of those, which is great. Oh, and thank you, Emily, for posting the online community to the chat. That's great. Yeah, everybody come join the community and talk. And in this uncertain time of COVID-19 and whether or not people will be getting together, and regardless of whether we get together, that we're not supposed to be shaking hands, we can all give each other virtual hugs and high fives on the online community and continue to chat there.
Nanu. I mean,
no, that's not
that's the Spock.
Right. This
no,
is
I like mixing my
you're confusing me, girl. Like, I automatically go to Star Trek. Sorry, that's just like my default mode, especially if I haven't had enough coffee. So probably TMI for everybody else, but that's part of it. Is invite Kiki and I in, and you get a little bit of the general craziness. So, getting to some questions that are out there. Take a look at this. How are you from Alana? How are you choosing online short courses to hold? And that really has been dictated by members coming to us and saying, here's something that I've really wanted to do, a course that I would like to offer, and then us talking with those people about, based on our community and the members of our community, let's hone that idea a little bit to really serve the community. And so a lot of times these are courses that are proposed by our members that they think would be of interest for our members. And we'll be launching our first one, will probably be May, and Kiki will be leading that, both because of her experience in podcasting, but also just to test really pilot the technology to make sure that it's working well. And then we'll be launching more courses in the summer. So we will be putting out the schedule for those courses in the next, I'll say probably 6 to 8 weeks.
But
I'm hedging bets on a lot of things right here, because I'll just be perfectly frank with you guys. As Kiki already mentioned, our major annual conference is 3 weeks from now, and we don't know whether or not it's actually going to happen based on the current COVID-19 situation. And so we are a little bit in flux in terms of figuring out exactly what things are going to look like. Not in the long term. We've already booked the 2021 conference, which is March 25th and 26th back in Portland. But what things are going to look like over the next 3 weeks as we look at transitioning from a face-to-face conference to potentially holding some of that conference virtually spread out through time and moving some of those sessions forward to 2021 versus holding everything in 3 weeks and just people doing foot bumps rather than actually shaking hands. So we're still looking at this, but the online courses are really driven by who in our community wants to offer one of those courses, with the idea that it's also a revenue sharing model for the organization and also for the individual that develops and offers the course.
Yeah, with the plan is to make it a 50-50 split, so that it is not just a volunteer thing, and that it is revenue generating for the trainer and our platform. And as that moves forward, like Ali said, right now we have been just approached by people, and we are just beginning our course offerings. As we move forward, we expect that it will become much more highly curated as we determine, we'd love to be in conversations with other organizations who are also working to certify science communicators. And we would like part of our course offerings to be part of that professional development certification pathway, so that the courses that are within the Science Talk community are going to help people when they're going out to find jobs, as they're developing their career even further. And some of the courses may be to do with the leadership pipeline that Ali has talked about very briefly. But yeah, so and we would love to also reach out to our partners to offer their skilled trainers the opportunity to deliver workshops or courses, webinars through our platform as well. And so it'll probably become, as we move forward and grow the course offerings, much more, I guess, procedural. I hope that it will be, because that means that we're succeeding at our goals of bringing quality content to the community. So
I wanted to touch, there are a few more questions. I don't want to get to those, but there's one more program that we're launching in a couple of weeks, either face-to-face or virtual, depending on what happens with the conference, but that I really wanted to highlight right now, and that is this new partnership with Sigma Xi, the Science Honor Society, for the SciComm Make program. And again, a lot of our programs occur in partnership with other existing organizations, and that's one of the things we're really excited about. So SciComm Make is this year a pilot program that brings together scientists and creators, artists, to do some speed matchmaking, form teams of 2 to 4 or so individuals that have both scientists and creators on those teams. And then for those teams, then over the course of, if it's going to be face-to-face, a couple of days, or if we wind up doing this virtually, a couple of weeks, to come up with a project or product idea based on the scientist research and the creator or artist's experience and expertise, to then pitch a project idea around a creative science communication product for reaching non-science seeking audiences. And then a panel of science communication professionals will judge those, and a couple of the teams will receive $1,000 each to actually move those products or projects forward, present them in the appropriate way, whether that's a video on YouTube or a face-to-face session in a local community of faith or in a local art gallery or whatever that looks like based on their project. And then to also present those projects and the results and what they found at the Sigma Xi meeting next November, and then moving forward at the Science Talk meeting next March. So we're really excited about this pilot as well, and this idea to actually not just bring these groups together, but to provide some capital to get some of these projects moving forward. And so hopefully more people will be interested in that project, whether or not it happens face-to-face or virtually. But that will be launching on March 25th with that matchmaking session. And if you go to our website or the Sigma Xi website, there's a place to sign up to be part of that project. All right, so let's go moving forward for questions from Joey, figuring out their own SciComm path into SciComm, and when there's time for it. Joey, you want to pipe in really quickly and
with that actual question? Yeah, clarify the question.
My flippant comment is there's always time for it if we make time for it, but that said, I don't recommend necessarily following my path, which is, Kiki said she was looking at maybe academia and maybe science communication, decided to go the science communication route. It's worked beautifully. I just decided to do both. And what that means is that I don't sleep very often. So There is time depending on how much you want, like sleep and food and time with cats. But at any rate, yeah, Joe, you want to jump in and actually talk to us about that?
Yeah, totally. So sorry about the wording of that. I meant if there was specifically time for the question, not time for transitioning into SciComm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay.
But
There's time for questions, so yeah.
Since I posted that in the chat, I realized that my kind of long-winded explanation and question may be better served with an email to somebody.
Okay.
So that way I don't take up multiple people's time with my question and the ensuing answers. So if there's someone you could recommend that I could contact afterwards, that'd be great.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to either of us. Easiest way to reach me, president@sciencetalk.org. Yeah, that'd be great. All right. Yeah, because definitely want to talk to her. So Julie, SES SciTalk Summit 2021 or Co-Summit. You want to jump in and
Let's
tell us a little more about your proposal?
Yeah, no, that's the science festival. Yeah.
Oh.
So technically, yeah, that would be the Science Festival Alliance conference and what they're doing. So that we're talking with Ben Weehee there. So I think that conversation can be continued. While she's, their part-time intern. It's good.
We need a part-time intern. All right.
Yeah, while she's typing,
yeah, looking at Miranda's comment here.
Yeah, but before that, I was going to say,
yeah.
She also, Julie also asked how to become a volunteer for Science Talk, and I think that is something, as Ali said, that we're all volunteers, and so knowing people who are good at what they do and want to be a part of the volunteer effort to make Science Talk run, we would love to talk with you about what you'd like to do and what you'd be up for, because we have many committees. We're currently thinking about possibly shifting things up a little bit in terms of how we organize the conference versus we'd love to organize regional events, and we would need somebody to help coordinate that. Or if somebody is interested in volunteering to throw a regional event, hey, let's talk about that kind of effort. We also have volunteer opportunities for helping with marketing efforts, social media, being ambassadors for Science Talk, helping get the word out about who we are and what we're doing. There are also other organizational logistics type volunteer opportunities as well. So there's a lot. We can talk with you. So let's email if you want to. Let's talk. If you want to volunteer, let us know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ali, can I please have a Science Talk email?
Yeah, ask Steve.
I've emailed people about this so many times. I would really like a Science Talk email. My email is kirsten@broaderimpacts.tv, and I'll put it in the...
You're going to type that in, Kiki? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll figure out how to set that up, right. That, again, that's part of being an all-volunteer organization, is that you have to figure out how to make things work. But I have access to the website now.
Yeah, so do I. That's right.
Because unfortunately our webmaster got deployed to Tennessee for a week with USGS after the tornadoes. Yeah. Which again gets part of being a volunteer organization, is that we all have our day jobs, and sometimes and that's part of being a volunteer for the organization as well, is that we recognize that everybody all has their day jobs. So I'm going to flip that around a little bit, in that we have this great volunteer corps that has really been growing quite a bit over the last couple of years, and especially over the last 6 months, as we've really been gaining a lot more traction nationally. And that we're working really diligently to pair people whenever possible, because we recognize that everybody has other things that they're doing, and we don't want this to be a burden on any one person. Like, for example, Kiki and I have been pairing a lot more in terms of our responsibilities. I think to the point where we've talked to some people, like I would run into somebody at the AAAS meeting last month, and they'd say, oh, I think I talked to you about this yesterday. Or maybe I talked to Kiki. Not really sure. Well,
We are melded into this.
we seem to be, right. You're going to get the same level of enthusiasm either way, but she has a much nicer microphone than I do. So it's kind of hard to say. All
And
right,
you
so
have
yeah,
more hats.
You have more hats or I have more hats?
You have more conference hats.
I have way more conference hats.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Questions, comments, thoughts? There's still some stuff coming on the chat, but who else wants to just pipe up and share something?
Oh, we've got someone. Hello.
Hi there. I'm Dennis Mangan from Santa Rosa, California, just north of that Golden Gate Bridge that Kiki was showing in the background there. Anyway, I am a science communication teacher, but that isn't the way my path started off either. I started off as a research scientist, bench level, university professor sort of thing. Went to the NIH for many years. I was an officer official there, and then an associate dean for research at the University of Southern California. When I was leaving the NIH about 8 years ago, one of the things I realized is that scientists they're brilliant people. I loved working with them my whole career, but the problem was that they could not tell me, nevertheless Congress, what was the important thing about their research that everybody needed to know, especially people in the congressional districts and so forth. So I made it a point that when I left the NIH, I was supposed to be retiring, but of course I didn't. And I started taking as many classes as I could, including the Alan Alda classes at Stony Brook and so forth. So for 8 years or so now, I've been teaching science communication to anybody who would listen. I go to high schools, I go to undergraduate, I go to professional meetings, and graduate students, postdocs, and faculty. The thing that I've noticed is that there's an interest in this next generation to want to learn to become better communicators, especially speakers. But there is a bit of a pushback that I'm seeing at the university level. A lot of the universities say, yeah, if we do a workshop, that's good. A one and done thing, that's all the kids need to know. I'm pushing for a little bit more commitment from the university academic environments and so forth to incorporate science communication as part of a curriculum. If you want to be a scientist, yeah, you're going to need to learn the discovery part, go out there and get the data, but you're also going to have to learn how to communicate that to others. And that's been my push for the past 8 years, and I'm trying to do my best. I've been to SciTalk for the 2018 and 2019, and I have to thank you very much for putting this together. I didn't know anything about it until the last minute, and I came up to both of them. I'm not going to be able to make it this year, unfortunately, but I have to thank you for what you're doing and call on you for help. Yeah. I would like to get this thing so that we start to get the message out there to the university administration that science communication is not just a sidelight. It's not just it's something that we should maybe do in our spare time or something like that. It's got to be integrated right into the curriculum. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I'm going to say a few things, and then I'm going to let some of the other people on the call actually say a few things about this conversation, because this is really an ongoing conversation in the broader field. So there are a number of universities that are doing things like that. I was just in a conversation with some individuals from Indiana University the other day, and they have a science communication minor there for their graduate students. Here at Washington State University, we're launching a graduate certificate in research communication starting next fall. There are the Alan Alda Center, like you said, they offer workshops in the summer, but they have an entire science communication curriculum for students, including medical students, at that institution, which is great. And there are a number of other universities that have ongoing science communication programs. I think Amherst has a couple of programs, and Brandeis, and I'm forgetting, and University of Santa Cruz has University of California, Santa Cruz has a whole science communication program as well. And so, and I'm leaving out a ton of programs here. So there's an increasing recognition by universities nationally that science communication should be more part of that curriculum. There's also the Science Communication Trainers Network, which is just starting to really get off the ground, that is really focused on building community specifically amongst trainers. And I know that Darcy Gentleman, who's on the core team for that, is on this call, and Darcy can always talk more there. And then there's also this idea of building this Listen Network, which is this meta network of science communication, public engagement, citizen science organizations that really at our first kickoff summit last month, or a couple of months ago now, we were talking about case making for science communication, for public engagement at a national level as well as at an institutional level. And Erica Kimmerling, who's on the call, is leading that network and can probably talk more about that effort. So there are a lot of efforts going on, both bottom up in terms of individuals, either students or faculty or small groups of faculty at institutions pushing up, and then in some cases administration, which is then where the money comes from, coming down to kind of meet in the middle. My understanding is that it's at the department chair and dean level where there's still, at least at the institutional structure, the most reluctance or hesitation. And I think some of that's changing. So
yeah.
Darcy, Erica, anybody else? Do you guys want to say anything about some of these other efforts?
Well, I was going to add from the chat, Julie brought up NABI, National Association of Broader Impacts, which is now ARIS, Advancing Research Impact in Society. NABI established offices for broader impacts in universities, institutions across the country, and now they are pushing their effort more onto the broader ideas of how all academic research and efforts are influencing society. And so they're doing a lot of work within institutions to try and bring some of these training efforts. And so I think ARIS would be another organization that is embedded at universities already and has representatives, people in offices where you can have those conversations and see what's being done. I think that would be a really good place to start talking to people.
And one more thing I'll add there before
we've got like 5 minutes until the end of the session.
Yeah, and I also, first of all, I just want to say, sorry, Caitlin, right? Caitlin Weber, University of Utah, they're doing a lot of great stuff in the ambassadors program. But I'll also say that this was, to a degree, my sabbatical project at AAAS with Emily Center when I was there last fall, of trying to learn more of what the different organizations are, or more to the point, what institutions, what universities are already doing about recognizing public engagement, incentivizing public engagement, how we can better make the case for public engagement. And so there's a lot of conversation there, and I think that Science Talk is one of the organizations working again with these other efforts that collectively the community, broadly defined, can really be promoting these conversations at an individual institution as well as a national level. So Darcy, Erica, either of you guys want to chime in here?
So just one quick word. So Allie did a great job of describing the network that I work on, so I'm not going to repeat it. And the focus in the Listen Network is on making the case to federal policymakers for science engagement, which is a little bit broader than what you were talking about, convincing universities to put into their curriculum. However, I also work and have worked on the American Academy of Arts and Sciences Public Face of Science project. And that initiative, if you go to publicfaceofscience.org, is where you can find the resources. That initiative will be releasing their final report with priorities, goals, and actions for the field this spring. TBD on exactly when. That's not control. However, I do know one of the recommendations in that report, and this is a little bit of a like breaking news kind of thing because no one has seen it yet, is that science communication should be integrated into the skills, should be integrated into the curriculum for scientists, and that is a mechanism for building capacity within the scientific community. So while that, it is only a report and reports don't, move the world, it is a reputable kind of it is a reputable organization within academia, and it is pushing kind of and amplifying the need. So it I think can provide ground cover for the people who are working within their universities who are saying it's important, because you're not alone. The American Academy is also saying it. So look for that, because I think it could be helpful.
Cool.
Darcy,
Cool,
anything you
cool.
wanted to chime in here?
Yeah, thanks very much, Ali and Kiki, for the mention. In the interest, both in time and then speaking to where we are. So the Science Communication Training Network is in a very nascent stage right now. We're still working on exactly what we are. And so over the course of 2020, expect to hear more from us in terms of the direction that's going, but it's very much in step with this idea of those who are seeking to train skills in science communications. That's the grouping that this network is considering. And so as we develop into more of an established presence, I would say, we'll have more information in that regard. So thanks.
And I would say that we would love to continue all of these conversations, but I mean, for me, is my own interest is both part of Science Talk, but also as an academic who's also teaching science communication at my own institution, to continue these conversations on the Science Talk online community, and to get even more out there beyond what I already did working with AAAS in the fall, which I am still working on writing up. Emily, you will have something from me, I promise, you and the PICA, of what are some of these efforts, what have been successful, how do we really promote this idea that Dennis raised of integrating science communication into the curriculum, ideally at all universities, but how do we continue to integrate science communication training and opportunities? And so let's keep that conversation going, because I think that's really important.
Yeah. And how do we make science communication a sustainable endeavor, a sustainable career? That is an even bigger question. Where does the money come from? Bottom line. Yeah. And I guess we are finishing up, and I want to, my final message will be that Science Talk as of now is still on for the end of the month. And if you have not yet made up your mind as to whether to register, a lot of airlines are offering refunds or flight changes free of charge now. So potentially you can make your travel plans and register for Science Talk, support the community. If Science Talk does not end up happening physically, there will be some aspect of virtual continuation over the days of the conference. We're going to try and do some engagement there and give people a bit of value for the registration. We would ask, Science Talk is a nonprofit. If you can, if your registration fee can become a tax-deductible donation this year, that would be wonderful. Or we can also potentially offer, if people are afraid to travel and their airlines are giving them trouble, we can offer credits for next year's conference, and you can plan ahead to join us next year. And once again, if you want to volunteer, if you want to be a part of growing our national community and help us hold regional events, let me know. Let's talk.
And continue the conversations on all these topics, whether you want to get involved or not.
Everything.
But just clearly, if you're on the call, you're interested in what the science communication community is doing, how we can build the community. So let's keep those conversations going, and let us know how we can help you, because that's really, as Kiki said, what we're here for, which is how can we serve this community to help us grow professionally as individuals and as a community overall.
All right, right on time, well done. So thanks to Kiki and Ali for that great discussion. Like they said, continue the discussion on the Science Talk websites, the Trellis websites through AAAS. Just to let people know, the next SciEngage will be on Friday, April 3rd. So mark your calendars now. We'll be hearing from Kishore Hari from the Chan Zuckerberg Institute, and he'll be talking about some of the research they've been doing on with millennials and their engagements around science. So more info to come. Alana posted the link in the chat box if you want to join our mailing list and are not already on it. So with that, happy Friday, wash your hands. See everybody
Don't
next
touch
time.
your face.
Yeah. If for anybody that wants to host a science communicate or participate in a science communication dance party, or maybe dance and rap